Hello all, Alison here. Welcome back to Words and Pictures for some tag time. Usually with tag time we start with some backgrounds we've already made and move on to layering things over the top of them. This time we're starting with some things we've already made that we might want to layer over some backgrounds, and I need some backgrounds to put them on. I'm gonna keep things relatively simple today, or at least that's the plan. You know how it goes. Sometimes the simple plan just ends up not being that simple. But yeah, I think I'm just gonna probably brayer some paint onto here. This is the same card I was using to stamp these on, so it's the modular card. It's quite flimsy, so it's only 190 grams. So what I might do is just glue some back to back. I'll see how it goes. And yeah, I may do some cutting of ovals as had been the plan with, hang on, I've put it away. This one here, which had an oval cut out of a top layer tag and various other things going on. Or actually I'm thinking I'd quite like just something that really simply highlights these eggs that we made the other day. I'll link obviously to that Eggstravanza in the description below. So yeah, I'm going for a simple background to let the eggs shine, and I need some paint, so I'm going to go and find that and I'll be right back. So here are some PaperArtsy Fresco paints. There's Koala, Antarctic and Blue Moon, all very subtle kind of background colours that tone in with what's already going on these eggs. And I'm thinking I pulled out this one of my stamp sets, which has got a great crackle background on it. That's EAB41 the Pressed Umbels. And yeah, I think I'm probably going to use maybe these labellings here. Maybe we'll stamp that feather. I don't know at the moment. I'm here to play. And we'll see where it takes us. For now, I'm just going to get a bit of paint onto the mat. Such a pretty colour. It's like a sort of very, very pale version of sea glass, which, along with speckled egg, the PaperArtsy sea glass colour is kind of the paint version of speckled egg, I would say. And these I'm just going to get onto the paper. The joy of brayering paint onto card is that it will give us automatically a kind of slightly thicker feeling. It gives us texture. It gives us a kind of delicious randomness. As you can see, I'm going in both directions, but mostly sticking to 90 degrees. I'm not going diagonally. I'm sticking to either straight across or straight up and down. And the other pleasure of this is that you can just keep layering it up until you're happy. I would like a little bit more of these two, but no more Koala, I think. A bit more Blue Moon. And a bit more Antarctic. And I might just, for argument's sake, still got on the desk my Speckled Egg Distress Paint. That's a much runnier formulation and a different texture, so it's going to do something slightly different in the mix. And already with that slightly more fluid look and a bit more paint on the mat, I'm getting a little bit more texture as I lift up. So the key as you're brayering is not to press down, 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 but actually to be quite gentle and lift up and away, leaving the paint behind. That's quite fun already. Quite nice textures going on in there. Very pale, very sort of, you know, not in your face. I do quite like where the white paper is still showing through, funnily enough, which is making me think I might want a little bit of whiteness in here. But rather than full-on glaring white of Snowflake, I'm going to take a little bit of Cloud 9. Just a slightly softer, chalkier white. There's also a PaperArtsy white called Chalk. PaperArtsy white paints really got their game in order. So many different shades of white. You wouldn't think there were so many different shades of white to play with, but there are. I'm trying to get to the edges, although to be honest, once I start cutting tags, it's probably not going to be right at the edge. I like the soft creaminess of that. It's kind of eggshell coloured. I think there's also a white called eggshell, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I should be using that. I think that might be enough, kind of just detail. Maybe I'll go one more round. A little bit of, so that's the koala again, a little bit of cloud 9, and maybe let's go with another little bit of the speckled egg, just because the whole thing is based around speckled eggs, so one ought to. I'm enjoying the Antarctic as well, actually, so let's put that in. And one of the lovely ways to get a really potent Brayered effect is to go with a contrasting colour, but I'm very, very deliberately not doing that on this occasion, because I don't want too much going on in this background. I want a kind of just subliminal backup effect for the eggs. There we go. That'll do me, I think. I think I'm good with that. What I might just do, and again, this is a very me thing. There's paint obviously left on here, which I'm just going to, with my spatter brush, pick up, mixing it all together, and just add a few. They may show up, they may not. Watery speckles. They're just giving me another little bit of texture. And if there are too many of them, let's just hold that up so you can see what's happening. That's just a kind of, yeah, randomness about that. One could always dip the paper down into what's on the mat. In fact, let's just do that with this piece of card that I've got standing around waiting to be the back, because that might be something to stamp on. I might want to stamp words on that, so that's just picking up again, just so that we don't waste paint that's on the mat, but that's also giving me some quite interesting textures. I might, in order to change what's happening in that spatter, I'm just going to press that down as well, and that's going to both flatten the spatters on here but also pick up any extras. See, that's an interesting background. It's got stuff going on. Grand. I'll tidy up a little bit and maybe cut out the tags. I do have the tag plate die, so that will cut me a perfect tag shape. I might do that. I might just cut by hand. You've seen me do it. I draw around another tag and then just cut it out. So I shall be back tidied up with some tags ready to play. Here we go. So out of the Brayered page, I cut a jumbo tag. I literally just laid down this jumbo tag across it and drew a line down here. So as you can see, it's not quite the same height, but that's fine. It's not a science. It's playtime. And then I used the cutting plate to cut myself a regular size 8 tag out of the other paper, which I think is going to layer over the top. I have, as a result, got a couple of the ring holders ready to go. I may or may not use those. I'm thinking maybe that one goes on there and maybe one of those goes on there, but that might be a bit too precise. Maybe it's better if they stick tone on tone, and then it's less sort of in your face. Yes, so obviously these eggs against this background don't want to really sing, but as soon as I layer them onto the paler background with the one behind kind of there, that's starting to say something to me. I don't know whether I can fit 3 on. 3 might be a bit of a squeeze. Don't know whether I want to fit 3 on, except that the rule of 3 tells us 3 eggs is a nice thing to go with. So it's somewhere there, but I want to layer up a bit more. So this large tag I have mounted onto some waste scrap cardboard. I just stuck it down using my usual Cosmic Shimmer acrylic glue. Any acrylic glue will do. And I'm going to, yeah, do a little bit of crackle stamping, I think, just because I think that'll be a really nice effect in the background. And I'm also wondering about using one of my very few wood-mounted stamps, which are these beautiful birds. They do also come in a cling mount stamp now, which obviously saves a lot of space. But very early in my journey, I did invest in one or two wood-mounted stamps, sort of almost before I knew any better, and worked out that cling-mounted stamps were a much better way to go in terms of storage space. So a little bit of crackle texture. I could zoom us in, bear with me. A little bit of seasick travelling towards the mat. There we go. So as you can see, I'm not mounting this stamp, I'm just peeling it on and off. Trouble with zooming in is I then forget and think I'm on camera, and I'm not. So a little bit of that just around the outside. Crackle, crackle. That's quite nice. I'm going to need to mount this on something because it's a bit flimsy at the moment. Do I want it on card or do I want it on cardboard? I think before I do anything else, I do want to stamp these birds. I'm feeling the need. So if they're there, maybe that's off center. Yeah, okay. No. We're getting there. I think this wants to be maybe scorched timber and some clear embossing powder if I've got some around. Must be clear embossing powder somewhere nearby. What are you? Clear embossing powder. Excellent. I want scorched timber because it's that beautiful dark cool brown, but of course being distress ink it won't be permanent, so the embossing powder is the thing I'm going to use to make sure it doesn't run after I've stamped it. The other thing with wood mounted stamps is you're that much further away from the surface as you stamp it. Do I want him as well? Where's this going to go? Yeah, okay, we'll see. Oh, they're nice. Right, let's get some clear embossing powder on. The other thing the clear embossing powder will do, because that was a sort of rough stamping over a painted background. It wasn't a perfect stamping. You know I embrace imperfection. But what that will do as I heat emboss it is give us a slightly stronger image up there. So let's give that a little... Thought you didn't need to listen to all that heat embossing going on. So one of the things I've always loved about the glossy embossing is you get that kind of now you see me, now you don't effect. When you're looking straight at it, yes, the birds, but as soon as you start to tilt and move it, they come and go in a really delicious way. Great, so this is going to go somewhere here. That's nice. Oh, and now there's a fly in the room. That's helpful, isn't it? So if you hear a buzzing noise, that's who it is, just accompanying us on the journey today. I am going to mount this on a bit of card because I think what I want to do, I know I curved the one on the other tag, but I don't think that's going to work for us if we're using all 3 eggs. But what I do want to do is mount it so that it's layered upwards, and that means it needs to be definitely stiffer. And I don't think it wants to be on cardboard. I don't think it wants to be as thick as that, although maybe. No, I'm just going to mount it on some card. Is there something lying around here? Yes, here we go. So this is some of the cheap cardstock that I got once upon a time when it was being sold off, and that'll be a perfect little mounting for that. So a little bit of glue, same thing, just all over the back of the tag, and you can glue down and cut round it. So that is mounted on a bit of card, so that gives it a bit more stability. I'm just going to chop out that hole, and hopefully about the right place, using my hole punch. Should maybe do it. Oh, just. It'll do, because there's going to be some twine through it anyway. And I was just thinking I might want to echo some of that crackle, but in a slightly paler colour. So it's coming onto this bit of tag as well, but it's coming in Pebble Beach, although there is a little bit of further up. There we go. So it's continuing that kind of sense of either cracked eggs or slight woody, barky texture. Yeah, I like that. There we go. So you can see with this crackle stamp, you can just kind of put any old bit of it any old where and it will work for you. Yes, I'm enjoying that. That's good. I had an actual nest on the previous tag, sort of constructed out of twigs and moss, but I'm thinking this is more of a sort of abstracted version of nesting. Quite enjoying that twig. I've been pulling various things to look at them. Do I like that twig if this is raised up? Yeah, it's going to need a little bit of inking around the edge, obviously, because I can't do anything without some inking around the edge. I'm just using whatever is on this brown thing. I've no idea. It's been dipped in walnut stain, probably scorched timber, all of that kind of business, and we'll do the same around here. So this is obviously going over paint, so it will have a slightly different look than going over the bare card. I haven't trimmed that very beautifully, have I? But I don't think I care. I think I'm fine with that. I'm going to need a bit more ink on here. So that is scorched timber, and you can see immediately you get that lovely dark cloud happening. So yeah, according to whether I brush onto the tag or just flick backwards from the edge of the tag, I'll get different amounts of ink entering into the game. Oh look, that sponge is disintegrating. Can you see all those bits of sponge on the tag, or is that far enough away? So as we layer that up now, yes, it's getting a bit more definition, a bit more looking into the centre. I had been toying with moss, but I'm not sure I'm in the mood for moss today. Let's put the hole punch away. I am still enjoying the twig. Let's have a look at some eggs. Something like that. Swap those two over because that's darker. Does that want to be nearer the bottom? Is there another twig? Maybe we want another twig kind of heading off in that direction. Yeah, I think that might be what's going to happen. So let's take some of that while we're at it. And then I was thinking just some simple stamping of these labels here, figure 1, figure 2, figure 3, figure 4. Probably just figures 1, 2 and 3, I should think. Just to label these eggs. Are we ready to glue them down? Are we ready to mount this on some padded tape? We probably are. Oh God. It's not the little tiny ones. Let's just use some of these and mount this tag up into the world. Oh, look, you see what I mean about they wouldn't have the same impact in any way, shape or form on there. So that little bit of layering is going to make all the difference. I'm just casting around for that, which I've lost again. It's amazing how on one table things manage to disappear when you're in the middle of using them. Very strange thing. Great, so let's have some of these. I do have a roll of padded tape somewhere, but A, I don't know where, and B, it's fairly ancient and therefore not very sticky anymore. So I'm doing this slightly inefficient thing of using a number of tabs. But the other thing about this is it's going to leave me lots of gaps in between. If I were to suddenly decide I wanted to insert lots of other things around and about, then I would have the ability to do that. But that's going to give us quite a nice mounting on there. Obviously, it'll be easier if I thread through some twine now rather than after I stick it down, which means I need the twine. I don't know if you can tell from the number of edits that I really wasn't in a very decisive mood today. Wasn't sure what I'm in the mood for. But let's pop that through and see. A bit of twine usually makes me happy. I think I might do it as a tied one as opposed to a looped one. I quite often loop through, but I think I want a bit more presence from my twine. Oh, I see, that's the wrong way. Yeah, or maybe we'll loop it. Go back to front. Oh, maybe doubled over. So maybe back to front with the whole thing and go through. You ever have one of those days when things don't cooperate? It's clearly because my mind is on other things. My tax return is due imminently here in the Czech Republic. Oh, and also it's my birthday on Thursday, so I'm, yeah, focusing on other things at the moment. That's nice. I like that. Good. Do I also want to raise up these eggs? I think I probably do. So let's give each of you, can we fit 2 on each? Yes, we can. So now we're really looking at dimension. But I think that's quite fun. I think that's quite a sort of a collector's eggs. Oh, now what I have done is made my life difficult, because by putting padded tape on the back of this tag, I've made it very hard for me to stamp. So maybe I'm going to have to stamp and cut out my labels as well, which will be quite nice. I'm enjoying that. You see the shadows they're casting, but that's quite enjoyable. Yeah, still enjoying the twigs. Okay, let's yes. I'm just wondering what advantage there is to not peeling these away yet. But if there's a big disadvantage to doing it, I can't quite foresee what it is, so I'm going to just do it. So what's nice about this is, composition-wise, this tag is off-center. These are off-center on this tag, but because of the positioning of the off-centered and the off-centered, they're ending up almost central on the whole tag, but not completely central. I wouldn't like that. I tend to prefer off-center compositions to centered compositions, and that's just a personal thing. If your preference is for centering things, then please go ahead and center things. I'm going to stamp these figure labels onto this Brayered card, because I think that's going to give me quite a nice effect if I'm back to having some of this paint surface that is in the background coming into the foreground as well. I think that might be quite a nice thing. What are we going to stamp these in? I might go so far as to stamp them in black, you know. Let's have a look. We've got plenty of painted paper here, so we can look at them in all manner of inks. Let's have a look at them in Scorched Timber down here. Well, I don't think I need to look at them in anything else. I like that. I like that. Now I'm going to have to be a bit careful. I don't want to smudge them. Again, I could clear emboss over them, but I don't think I want those shiny. I love that sort of aged look they've got there just from being stamped. So as soon as that's fully dried, the other way that I can preserve distress ink is by using a little bit of this magic waxy distress glaze. That'll just make them more permanent. So which do I want? I think we'll just go 1, 2, 3. Let's keep things simple, eh? Let's count properly. Figure 1, figure 2, and figure 3. There we go. Yes, that's going to be cute. Let's pop a little bit of glue on the back. Ah. It really is one of those days. It really, really is. Just one of those things. I might need tweezers because my fingers are not cooperating today. Let's stick that down. Figure 2, figure 3. There we go. Figure 1. Good. I want a little bit of inky spatter, as though it's an old book page or something like that. I really need to get this disintegrating sponge off the mat. There we go, out of the way. And so for that, I think I'm going to use a mixture of the Scorched timber with some good old pumice stone and just create a little bit of aged inky spatter going across. And it's like speckled egg all over again. Speckle, speckle. There we go. It's just to create a bit more detail across that quite white tag. It has got that speckly background that we picked up, but it's a subtle affair. So that's just giving me a little bit more oomph. I sort of don't want to waste that either, so I'm just gonna, yeah, I might pick it up onto this Brayered background, see what that gives me. Yes, nice. There we go. Never waste your ink. So that's another whole speckled egg, just ready to play. I could just cut egg shapes out of here and I'll have speckled eggs ready to go. All good. Grand. So let's have a look at this twig again. Just having a look at the positioning on there. Yeah, I do like it. Do I like this one as well? Maybe I like him part way up. Oh yes, look, sort of pretending he's growing out of here. And then we're just going to want something that lives in there, but I don't know what is yet. So I'm going to glue this twig down. As I'm gluing it down, I'm just going to be thinking about what might go in here. I'm wondering whether gluing it down is an error, because that will leave me unable to add anything in later. I've got lovely little things sitting around, Jemima tinted. So these are musicians from one of my stamp sets. That's quite nice. I don't think I want more egg colour really. What about some of my usual? Oh, there's quite a nice ticket here. But that's a bit dark. It's distracting from everything else, isn't it? What about some of these Snippets stickers? Oh, look, it might be a bit of, yeah, a little bit of sort of standard collaging around some labels. The 82.50 for eggs. Well, I hear that that's the way it is in some places now. I think it might be a couple of these, like so. That's the neighbour's dog. Oh, it's not 82.50. It's 2.50. That seems a little more reasonable. Let's see what we've got in the way of stamped labels. Well, it's quite nice to have one in that colour, isn't it? Let's take this twig away. It's not needed at present. Quite nice. So again, I'll link to the video where we made these. These are done with the Tim Holtz stamps. I did also lots of my own ephemera from my stamp sets over matinted backgrounds. So it's just giving me a colour tone that works really rather nicely with the eggs. And I might pop another one down here with, what have we got? There's something that'll tone in nicely in the ready-made stamps as well. Yeah, there we go. That's starting to work for me. I need something brownish coloured up there as well. There it is. let's have you maybe down here. So we've got two little bits of ephemera collaging in between the 3 eggs. And we've got that. And then what I might do, so here's where it's lucky I've got those spaces underneath, is I might tuck just a little bit of moss around underneath there. But I'm going to glue some of this down. Oh, maybe it's having some of that coming through from underneath as well. Yeah, so keeping these sort of over here and then having a balancing one at the in-between height. I know lots of people are very efficient and and sort these out in folders. I do have a plan to do that. I simply haven't made my way around to doing it just yet. I quite like this oval one because it's another little echo of an egg shape. So I'm thinking it's sort of something like that-ish. I'm going to glue it down and I'll be back. So one of the things I'm really quite enjoying about that is how those little labels stick out over the edges of things. And I still haven't peeled back my tabs off my raised labels because I'm sort of thinking about creating, if you remember the end of the Eggstravanza, the baskets the eggs were sitting in had in them just paper straw that you can get around Easter time in lots of places. Or I actually think this was rescued from some packaging that I had once upon a time, because the colour of it is really rather delightfully neutral. I was just considering creating a nest for the tag, which I think is sort of quite a nice effect, really. I'm liking the messiness of that. I'm just wondering how effectively I can retain the messiness whilst gluing it down. There's something to me rather pleasing about that. Then do I still want the twig? Yes, I think I do. Okay, let's see what we can achieve. So I'm just going to put kind of a random amount of glue here around where I sort of want that nesting material to go. I've probably put a bit too much, going a bit too high up, except I do like that. I like that effect of it sort of mounting up the side there. And then I'm just going to try and marshal that into some kind of good behaviour. And then obviously when I put the tag down over the top of it, that's going to also help. And then I can trim it afterwards with scissors. But for now, I'm going to let that do that. I'm going to rapidly peel off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do them in order so that we don't lose track of where I've got to. There'll be lots of silly little squares of paper everywhere, but those might be one thing I don't hoard. I keep so much, but I think maybe I can afford to do away with. So let's try and get that stuck down. Yeah, that's going to hold that in place. Those little bits of glue will dry. Let's do a little bit of stuffing of this paper in and under. And the bits that I can't control sufficiently to make my eye happy, we can just trim off. But I think probably in between glue and sticky pad and tag weight, I think probably most of it is going to get to stay. I do like that because it's not putting the eggs in a nest, it's putting the tag in a nest, which is a rather nice way to look after a tag, I think. There we go. Let's have a look at that. I think you're probably a bit much just there, so let's lose you. Yeah, a few of these bits are just a little bit too much going on. Let's see what we've got now. And or we could put just a little extra bit of glue and encourage them to lie down a little bit. Yep, good, happy with that. I rather like this big twig. I've lost my tall twig. There's my tall twig. Quite like the big twig as well. And I'm just wondering, I've got this word springtime stamped from ages ago. It's going to cover up my figure 3, but do I mind? It's quite nice. I'm going to glue this down. So in my usual way, when you're getting natural elements involved, you just have to kind of look out for where they're making contact and just work with them. There's no point me trying to force this twig to bend in directions it doesn't want to bend in, because it'll just snap. It's a very good lesson in acceptance, working with natural elements. So I've got some where it's making contact with that egg there. I've got some, and what I could do is just a little bit on here to let it make real contact. So I'm constructing a tree, basically. Where I want a tree to be, I've now made a tree. I should really let that dry. But I'm gonna fiddle around with this in the meantime and just see if there's somewhere I want it to go. There may not be. It may be something else. I may need some other word stickers. But I just want to test out springtime. See, that's not bad, balanced on the... I really wish it was long enough to stick out in that direction. If I got a longer word. Springtime, I think, is one of the longest individual words. I'm also thinking I'll re-stamp it in a darker colour so that it pops. There's something not quite right up here. It may just be that I need... Just noticed these that we stamped the other day. Just wondering whether that's a thing. Given we're doing birds and nests, and I don't think I like it in the multicoloured one, interestingly. I might prefer it in brown. Or, so what my brain was partly thinking was maybe I needed a label or two up here, because it's just looking a little bit neglected up here in the corner. I'm not quite sure yet whether it's under or over. Let's see if there's a snippet that will do the job. That's quite dark brown. I don't think we want that. We need a nice palish coloured one. What do you look like? 1,000 eggs. That's quite nice. Maybe a little brown. Something about the balancing act that's not quite working at the moment. Let's see what happens if I stamp that a little darker. Maybe in the Scorched timber. Now I have to remember which set it's in. It's in the Apple Blossom. Yes, it is. So there we are. Growth, light and springtime. There it is. Let's just have a little look at it in Scorched timber, because as we've encountered before in these sessions, sometimes just changing the colour that you've stamped something in can make a world of difference. That's going to tone in much better with those twigs. The tree that I've built. Didn't know I was going to be building trees today, but there we are. Let's have a look at... Let's put it where you can see it. Let's pick that up and put that down. Yeah, and if I kind of balance it there, now that I've got that balancing act going on, that's feeling better to me. Is there a teeny little blue thing that I can just explore having up here? Oh, look, that is that one. Haha, that's the pre-made one. And that's a stamped version of it on Matint. That's quite pleasing to have both. Or is that too many ovals? I'm going to do that. Because as I say, one of the things I'm enjoying about this is is them sticking out over the edges. So I'm going to follow that pattern and have this really stick out over the edges up here. The good news is I think I can just slide it behind that egg. Yep, a little bit of this one, which gives me the dark. As we've got there, the brown and the brown. Stick that over there. And then let's just have another look at that before we glue it down. That's a little extra trim. And just a little bit of edging. Somehow I have now managed to get it so that it's sticking out over the edge as well, which is making me a lot happier. Yeah, I'm going to glue this down. And there's something about how that throws the birds into the distance that I'm enjoying. There's something missing here. La la la. Little label. Oh. Yeah, it's about those being in the background and then needing something in the foreground. Oops, see, I knew I should have stopped. Should have stopped faffing till that was properly dry. I think it might be as simple as that. I'm going to have a look at it, but I think I might be there. I'm going to put a bit of glue there, a bit of glue there. And if I position it very carefully, I can still see figure 3. I can still see almost all my labels there. You're on the move again, aren't you? And then I really need to let it all dry. Come back and have a look. See if I can see where it needs anything else. Back in a sec. I think I've worked out that what it wants is just a little bit of inky shading onto this tag to just give it an echo of the background. So that's some Speckled Egg Distress ink and some Speckled Egg Distress Oxide. And I'm just going to take this brush and just add a little more speckled egg colour to this tag. So where we picked up that leftover paint from the background, there's just not quite enough of it going on, and I think it wants just that extra bit of colour that tones into the background. So yeah, why not spatter? And that's going to pick up some of those. And then, of course, the other thing I am going to want is a little bit of white spatter across the whole thing. So let's get the Snowflake out while we can. So this is my almost empty Snowflake can of paint now, which means that I can just kind of go direct in. I'm not worried about contamination anymore. We're right at the end of the bottle. There we go. And I'm going to try and hit some of that nesting material. Some of those labels, definitely the background and the twigs. Yeah, I think that's the thing that it needed, was just a bit more of that speckled egg colour. In fact, maybe it's as much as distress paint rather than just ink, because that'll give me even a little bit more. I'm going to mix it in with those. Just go with a, yeah, there it is. It really is. It's a speckled tag. It couldn't be more speckly. The speckles grow by the instant, by the moment. Yes, that's what it is. It was too bold, bright white, this one in the foreground. So it needed tying into that background with just a little bit more speckled egg colour. grand. I shall be zooming in for a close-up, obviously, of all this dimension and delight that's going on. But I hope you've enjoyed that bit of tag time today, chopping and changing, as ever, going in various directions, and trying to work out what it is my fevered brain is after this morning. Thanks so much for your company. If you've enjoyed that, do give me a thumbs up. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. It's great to have your company on this creative journey. I will leave as much information as I can in the description down below about relevant videos that you might also want to watch and the ingredients that we've used for today's tag time. Thanks so much for watching and happy crafting all.